I've been on this journey in my personal life, probably last year and a half to 2 years, in my faith and in my dependency with Christ. I'm more aware, part of that process of getting older, I suppose, but I'm more aware of my mortality than I've ever been. I'm also more aware of my, I don't meet those standards that some people might think to sit at that table necessarily with Christ. But it's interesting, even in that undeserved spot, and even in that weakness and shortcomings, over the last year and a half to 2 years, this is really where I've actually felt the most welcome to sit down at that table and dine with Christ. And it's a strange phenomenon, but it's one of those things of really being humbled and really just needing to seek after the mercy of God when He is able to expose me for what I really am, and that's the value that He's placed on me. And so that's where we're picking up with last week in the parable of the dinner in Luke chapter 14. We know those sitting around the table with Jesus actually had this great misinterpretation of what that dinner and dinners like theirs were supposed to be about. And they were actually comparing it and looking forward to this messianic banquet that was mentioned in the book of Isaiah. But their understanding, again, was greatly distorted. And as I was reading through some of the commentaries on the book of Luke and chapter 14 here, I came across this great this great comparison that happened from one of C.S. Lewis' writings, the seventh book in the Chronicles of Narnia. Book, I don't know if you guys read Chronicles of Narnia, but it's got these amazing spiritual just undertones to it. You can't help, even watching the movies, you can't help but go, oh, I can see what's going on here. I get it. So in this, near the end of the last battle, that's the name of the book, you've got this Lion King Aslan who comes to this group of grumpy old dwarfs. And he sets out this meal before them, this great banquet. But the issue that the dwarfs have going on is they don't believe in Aslan. They don't put their faith in Aslan. They don't trust Aslan. So as he does this, they're actually not able to see the meal the correct way. And they're not able to taste the meal in the correct way. I just want to read a short version, or a short piece of this book to you. And it says this: Aslan raised his head and he shook his mane. Instantly a glorious feast appeared on the dwarf's knees. Pies and pigeons and trifles and ices, and each dwarf had a goblet of good wine in his right hand. But it wasn't much use. They began eating and drinking greedily enough, but it was clear that they couldn't taste it properly. They thought they were eating and drinking only the sorts of things you might find in a stable. One said he was trying to eat hay, and another said he had a bit of an old turnip, and a third said he'd found a raw cabbage leaf. And they raised golden goblets of rich red wine to their lips and said, "Ugh! Fancy drinking dirty water out of a trough that a donkey's been at. Never thought we'd come to this." So the whole thing with these dwarfs, after they finish this miserable meal that they've sat down to, they started congratulating themselves for refusing the king's banquet. And the thing is, God's got this great feast that's planned for each person. He desires that we all take a seat at His table. But the problem is, many people, like the dwarfs, somehow manage to refuse this dinner that God has set out for us. So this is the environment that Jesus is sitting at. He's sitting at this self-centered, pious, perfection-driven, non-relational, I'm going to get what I deserve because I've earned it type of table. And that's where we pick up again in Luke chapter 14. So if you've got a Bible, you can turn to Luke chapter 14. If you don't have a Bible, there's probably one in a chair under nearby you. But Jesus is now at this dinner, and he wants to communicate to these people that they can experience redemption and restoration by sharing in a Jesus style of mercy and humility. And so Luke chapter 14 verse 1 says this: "It happened that when he went into the house of one of the leaders of the Pharisees on the Sabbath to eat bread, they were watching him closely." So it's kind of a familiar scene. If we rewind, probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were in chapter 13. It was the Sabbath, and Jesus is sitting down to have dinner with some high and mighties. And there was a woman who came in who was bent over, and he stood her up straight, set her free, is what the text says. Set her free. And here we are. This is, I think, the third setting where Jesus is about to perform a miracle. Breaking the rules, doing the wrong things, as Doug might say. And the thing that jumps out to me about this text, I don't know if you caught it, is that when he walks in, they were watching him closely. They were watching him closely. So my question is, what in the world is Jesus doing there? Why is Jesus there? And if you've got an answer, you can give me your answer. So what do you think Jesus was doing there at this dinner? Is it that Jesus just really likes to stir things up? Does he like to show up? Oh, it's the Sabbath. Hey guys, I gotta go. Dinner party, trouble. Here we go. Let's do it. What is Jesus doing there? This is as bad as junior high guys around the table. But I gotta give them more credit, actually. What do you think? What's going on?
I'm sure he got invited there.
He got invited there, absolutely. That's one of our points from last week. He's a teacher. He's probably the most famous teacher at the time right now. And so they invite him there because having a famous teacher, it's going to boost somebody's status, right? And if he's not there to boost status, he's there so that they can shut him up if he's saying something that they don't like. Yeah, so he's probably invited there. Here's the thing about legalists. I don't think this is a note on the screen, but legalists love to trap people in a transgression or a double standard, something of that nature, so that they can feel more superior about their own spirituality. Right? It's going to be a status boost. So if they can trap him like that, then it's still going to boost their reputation. He was a famous teacher. It was a typical move of hospitality for a traveling rabbi, a teacher in the area. They know he's passing through, so of course they're going to invite him over. But then I think that maybe the end of this, Jesus already knows what's going on, and he doesn't walk into this blindly. But I think the reason that they have him there to watch him closely was the same reason that Jesus actually bothered to show up, was so that they would watch him closely. And I thought it was just such a cool fact how Doug was mentioning these last couple of weeks that these probably are not people that Jesus hates. These are people who are the most like Jesus as far as their role in other people's lives. And so Jesus probably still has this strong desire to show them truth, to bring them out of this spot, this blind spot in their lives. So he shows up so that these people can actually watch them closely. But you got to imagine the added tension of dinner guests around the table. I don't know what your experience is with dinner guests around the table. I remember this Thanksgiving. My grandparents were always just great at inviting whoever went over their house. Their home was always an open invitation. It still is to have people come and stay the night travelers come and stay the night. Missionaries come and share meals around the table. Same was true over the holidays. They would invite these people over who, the rest of the family had no idea who these people were. Sometimes it was really weird, but there was always this strange tension that was going on. And one Thanksgiving in particular, I was probably around 20 years old, there was a guy that they invited there, probably mid to late 20s. And just kind of a strange, guy. But we're just watching him. And he's talking, and he's probably watching us as well. And we finished up Thanksgiving dinner, and literally, this guy is sitting back in the living room with the rest of us there. And he just, suddenly out of nowhere, just says, that was really great. This is just a great meal. The food was really delicious. Thanks for having me over. But are we going to have dessert anytime soon? And I just remember the looks that were going around the room, just like, what? This is nuts. But there's just that element of surprise and added attention. So you can imagine what's going on around this table as Jesus just sits with these people. And they kind of figure each other out. What's going to be said next? The looks that are being passed around the table. Let's read on Luke chapter 14. Verse 2. And there in front of him was a man suffering from dropsy. And Jesus answered and spoke to the lawyers and Pharisees, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? But they kept silent. And he took hold of him, and he healed him, and sent him away. And he said to them, Which one of you will have a son or an ox fall into a well, and will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath? And they could make no reply to this. So the first thing that Jesus notices as he walks into this dinner party, as he walks into this house, is a man with this incredible need. And this is actually the first thing that Jesus notices about all people. Right? This man that has a need. These people that have a need. Tim, who has a need. This church that has a need. And these are needs that only Jesus can meet. He knows it. And he sees this man suffering from this thing called dropsy, which is really an archaic term at this point. But basically the definition of dropsy means, or shows sign. Brad, do you know what dropsy is? No? Not even a doctor knows what it is. It's a retention of water, usually a sign that there's some body failure going on internally. So this man is sitting there, probably has swollen features of his body. And there he is sitting there. Why the guy is there, I don't think we can say for sure. Some people speculate that it was definitely the trap that was set. It could have been because of the open door policy of the Pharisees wanting to seem like they were open to loving and caring for other people. He might have just wandered in. It shouldn't have been there in the first place, but that's not really important to our point this morning. The point is he's there. What is important about dropsy is already in this point in time, dropsy is used as a metaphor or a label that they might put. They might actually put this on people who are greedy. They might put this on people who are money lovers. They might put this label of dropsy on people who are self-centered. Which this is the kicker. Because this guy walks in and Jesus is sitting with people who are that very thing, spiritually speaking. And Jesus has got front and center this great metaphor, this great picture to start working with. And so he does. In verse 3, if you just take a minute to look at verse 3. And Jesus answered and spoke to the lawyers and the Pharisees. And just that part right there. I don't know if this hits you the way it hits me. But is there something missing from that verse? Question. Yeah, the question. So what's the question? Jesus knew the condition of the Pharisees' hearts. He's doing what only Jesus can do as he scans around the room. They're watching him closely. He's watching them equally as close, and actually closer, because he can see human condition that's going on. And so he answers something that's not asked, but it's really a tension that's going on at this dinner party inside of him. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? Jesus is a game changer. I think I shared before, my wife and I don't really play any board games together anymore, just because of that tension that it brings. But there was this one game she used to just beat me at every single time. It's this game called Othello. I don't know if you know Othello, but basically it's got, these little chips on it that's set out on this huge checkered board, and one side is black, one side is white. And somehow, because of the placement of the chip, wherever you place your next one, you get to flip over multiple other ones to your color. And so I would think I had Michelle on the ropes a couple of times. The whole board is black, it's going my way. Suddenly she placed one of these chips down, and all of them were flipping over, becoming white. I'm going, what is going on? That's what Jesus does. Jesus is a game changer as he sits down with these people. They think they've got him in a spot where he can't say anything, and Jesus looks at their hearts and goes, okay, I got a question for you. And the whole thing changes. Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? Here's the problem. If they answer yes, it is lawful, they're going against their own religious principles that they've already set out that they can't do. They've created these things, really. They've made them up. Because there are certain things that they already do. There's certain things that they can do. There's life-threatening situations. They could pull the ox out. They could pull a son out. And even beyond that, they've really made these rules so that they can do whatever they actually want to do. But if they answer no, what would that reveal? How heartless, how merciless they actually are to the people. It's going to be basically opening up, just going, Jesus saw it, now everyone take a look at my heart. This is who I really am. And there's no way they want to do that. They're stuck, they're trapped in their own legalism. So why did Jesus ask the question in the first place? It's because he wants to communicate that they can experience the redemption and the restoration that comes from Jesus' mercy and his style of humility, even on the Sabbath. Excuse me. I've been battling this cold all week long, so my throat is tickling a little bit. But even on the Sabbath, they can experience these things. So what's the Sabbath for? We talked about it a little bit last week. I just want to renew this for our minds. It's a time to worship. The Sabbath is a time to rest. And I think Jesus is really showing that the Sabbath is a time to show mercy to people who are in need. That's what the Sabbath is for. The Sabbath is intended to meet the real wants of the human condition. That's what the Sabbath is for. The Sabbath is an evaluation of the heart between us and God. God looks, we look, we evaluate it. It's like Johnny was talking about this morning. What is worship all about? The point is, we need to be intentional. Same thing with the Lord's Supper or communion. It's a time to reflect. It's a time to recognize who God is and what He's done. It's a time to be intentional about those thoughts. It's a time to actually check my attitude and go, okay, why do I do what I do? Is this to impress somebody? Is this to make me look good? Is this to raise my standard according to other people's eyes? Why am I doing this in the first place? And not to get stuck in legalism, but I think a day of Sabbath is a fantastic idea. we don't take advantage of it enough. A time to worship, a time to rest, a time to show mercy to people who are in need. And that's what the whole day is all about. We don't take advantage of it enough. But it doesn't just have to happen on one day. I think that we could live out Sabbath moments throughout every day. We could take these opportunities to be intentional. Every single day, we can live out Sabbath moments. It happens when we take time to show mercy to the sick by visiting them at their bedside. It happens when fathers show mercy to their kids by putting them on the tops of their agendas. It happens when the wealthy show mercy to the poor by feeding them bread. It happens when those who have found Christ show mercy to others by sharing the gospel with them. And it happens when we take time to experience redemption and restoration by sharing in Jesus' mercy and His humility. Let's look at Luke 14:7. Jesus seems like a huge transition here, going from healing this man and seeing all these things happen, the tension at the table, to suddenly talking about a parable. But it's actually one smooth flowing thought through this whole thing. So the focus isn't just on the parable. Jesus has already been teaching what He's about to teach in the parable through the whole dinner so far. And He says, and He began speaking a parable to the invited guests when He noticed how they had been picking out the places of honor at the table. We know that they've been looking for the highest esteemed spots where they were going to find the most honor as they sat down. We know that they were walking up to the host or important guests that might raise their status by having close conversations. You know, the little whispers in the corner. Hey, how you doing? You know, hey, everyone, look at me with this person. That's what they're doing. They know they're walking over to chairs and kind of like beating around the area. It's like musical chairs, right? When the music stops, you don't want to be out. So you're hanging out by the chair that you want to be in as long as you can. Kind of putting your stuff by it, leaning on it, resting on it, so that you get that spot that's really going to honor you. You get to be the winner. Selfishness always reduces the importance of others, and it enlarges the importance of one's own life. And this thing happens all the time. And those of you who have kids like I have kids, you experience it. Or those of you who've had kids, or those of you who know about kids, see this happen all the time. A great example is when we're getting in the car. And there becomes this great fight about who gets to sit in which seat. Because someone else thinks that somebody else is getting a place of honor that they deserve or that they shouldn't have. Right? That's how that plays out in a simple way in my family. My sister, parenting tip right here, she came up with a way to solve that one. She says her family rule is every time they get in the car now, from the last time, you have to sit in a different seat this next time. So she says it's working out. She's got 4 kids that way. You can try it. I don't know. But I'm guilty of the same thing as well. I'm guilty of it when I step in front of someone who's going after something that I want, but I want it more in my mind, or I deserve it more in my mind. Or when I sit around, there's not much to reflect sometimes, but when I try to reflect on my own reputation, or I exaggerate my accomplishments to other people, or even when I try to, get someone else to say something good about me, exaggerate my accomplishments for me. Or here's a tough one for me. When I fail to get the place that I think I deserve, and then I just resent it because I didn't get it. And that's not to be a Debbie Downer. The cool thing is, like I shared before, honestly, I'm enjoying dining with Christ more now than I ever had before, because I recognize that Christ restores me in that. And Christ redeems me to my full value price, which was the cost of his own Son. Luke 14, 8 through 11. When you're invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for someone more distinguished than you may have been invited by him. And he who invited you both will come and say to you, give your place to this man. And then, in disgrace, you proceed to occupy the last place. But when you're invited, go and recline at the last place, so that when the one who invited you comes, he may say to you, friend, move up higher. Then you will have honor in the sight of all who are at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And it just so happens that yesterday I went to a wedding. That's the truth. I went to a wedding. And I was complaining the whole way. I was complaining because it was 2 hours away. So I was already devoting 4 hours of my day yesterday to driving to this wedding. And then I was going to devote a few more hours actually at this wedding. So we get to the wedding, and I love the people. That's why I ultimately went. We showed up there. Michelle actually gave me an out. Fine. You don't want to go, don't go. But I went. I knew what that meant. We get there, and then I'm placed at table 9. And that doesn't sound so bad out of like 18 tables, but table 9 was kind of like this awkward table on a slope outside, far away from even being able to see the wedding party. And we happened to be in the middle, and the way they were dismissing for food afterwards, we were the last ones up there. And we got up there finally. And I got my food and all that stuff. But you know what made it worth it? The whole thing. Changed everything. Changed everything was when the beautiful bride came over to our table, which was really cool because Michelle and I knew her as a student when she was probably like this big. And she came over to our table and just got in our faces and just talked it up with us and hugged with us and just shared about life with us. It made us feel so important in those moments. And then afterwards, we get to hang out with the bride's parents, who we still feel very close to. And the bride's parents are saying, you know, things are definitely not going to be as busy as they've been. We're going to have you guys over. We love you guys. We miss you guys. We want to spend time with you guys. That's a deal changer right there. Because suddenly, I'm looking around going, everyone see this? Important. But not because I said so, but because they said so in that moment. That's what's going on right here. That's exactly what's going on right here. Jesus is saying, hey, you don't have to do that for yourself, because you are also worth the redemptive full value of the life of my Son. Don't do it for yourself. Let me do that for you. It's going to be so much better. I'm just going to share these last couple of verses with you. And he also went on to say to the one who had invited him, when you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or your rich neighbors. Otherwise, they may also invite you in return, and that will be your repayment. But when you give a reception, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, since they do not have the means to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. And as is customary at these highbrow parties, you invite someone to boost your status. Their status gets boosted so that they can invite you back and do the same thing. But Jesus is saying, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it should work. In other words, invite those who will experience redemption and restoration by sharing a Jesus style of mercy and humility with them. Do that. And then let Christ reciprocate the honor for you. Let Him fulfill that honor back to you like only He can. Especially at the time that the Lord returns. Let's pray. You are a great, awesome God. And we do look forward to your return, King Jesus. Cannot wait. Cannot wait for that time.